How are you? Fine? Good. Let's start at half past 9. Yes. Not for the not for
Ouais, c'est vraiment bien. Ce matin, je suis attendue pour l'entretien à la saison. essaye de commencer leur musique et puis...
Il est sur l'ordinateur pour le club. Hein? Moi, mon appareil photo, il est sur l'ordinateur. Ah ouais.
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to be here today. It's my great pleasure to open this fourth day of GSGS, even if it's the first 2 days I will present were mainly workshop and networking, and today and tomorrow will mainly be about presenting projects and their keynote speakers. So here is first a very small presentation for introduction. I would like to thank Suisse and also HE-Arc with the main presenter here, Mrs. Brigitte Bachelard, who will make a short introduction just after me, because HE-Arc, without HE-Arc there's no GSGS at all. It's our main sponsor, it's our main support, so thank you so much for being there. I would like also to say thank you to the NIF, that was the incubator, the original incubator of GSGS, and the Swiss Game Association, HE-GA, also for their support, the company Digital Kingdom, of course, the API also is helping us a lot, and in general also the HESSO, which is the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Western Switzerland. So basically, this is the 8th year, and you will receive a QR code very soon to access the latest proceeding, which is around 111 pages, I think, this year. And the program of the GSGS is 5 days this year, as you can see, as I said just before, with 2 days of workshop, Monday and Tuesday, and Wednesday was networking. So we end up very late for some of us yesterday evening, and today and the day after tomorrow will basically be about this program with this year, I believe, a great program. We never had such a chance to have keynote speakers, for instance, as the one you will see and hear. I hope you enjoy hearing this year. 6 sessions with 25 short talks and some rewards tomorrow evening. And these rewards have been made by the head in Geneva. Thank you very much for funding this work. This year is there's almost 50% of the contribution from applied academic, mainly applied universities, and also about 40% of industrial partners, and only 10% of pure academic partners. There is in the book, as usual, now an enigma, a special one. find out the enigma. And this cat is, well, there's a kind of storytelling with something related to artificial intelligence. And then you will find some clue spread out inside the conference book. And hopefully you will find maybe the story and what happened to this poor cat. And if you succeed, please tell me and you will get a reward, of course. Thank you so much for being there, and let me introduce you, Mrs. Brigitte Bachelard. Please.
Mesdames, Messieurs, chers collègues, permettez-moi quelques mots en français pour vous souhaiter la bienvenue ici à la Haute-École-Arc. Nous sommes très fiers en tant qu'institution d'accueillir la 8e session de cette colloque international sur les gamification and science game. Le succès grandissant de ces approches de science game indique clairement qu'en matière pédagogique notamment, c'est un outil précieux, ce qui n'est pas négligeable pour une institution de formation. Je tiens à remercier principalement aujourd'hui les organisateurs de cette longue semaine, on va dire, M. Stéphane Robot en particulier, M. Julien Serre, mais aussi tous les autres que je ne cite pas et qui ont permis de faire cette rencontre très importante. Meine Damen und Herren, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, es freut mich sehr, heute hier in Neuchâtel begrüßen zu dürfen. Ich hoffe sehr, dass der Geist beim neuen Buch wird uns ganz schön und produktiver und fruchtbarer Austausch beflügelt. So, I was supposed to speak English. Well, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm very glad to welcome you today in Neuchâtel. You know, the first time I heard about the Grecian serious game, I was thinking, well, it's quite weird. Serious game, like a contradiction, isn't it? But I am an economist, and I remember in 1994, the American mathematician John Nash, maybe you know, he won the Nobel Prize about the theory of games. In economy, theory of games is supposed to predict the action and reaction of economical subjects in many situations. So it's very simple. But let's go back to this session. After 2 days of workshops, after 1 day of networking and presentation, we are now starting the cycle of conferences, and very beautiful contribution today and tomorrow have to be presented. I'd like to thank you all for being there and to share all these experiences, and I'm sure it will be very productive. La Haute-École-Arc, institution, sorry, I wanted to speak German again. Our institution is provided some formation in engineering, in economy, in health, and in conservation and restoration. And serious game have application in many dimensions of our society, like health, security, engineering, and education, of course. So I wish you a very beautiful day today and tomorrow too. And I'd like to hope that the next session will be very interesting too, next year and next year, and again and again, because we have a lot to discover together. Voilà. I wish you the best day, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. We are slightly ahead, so it's fine. We're going to start the first session, which is health. The second session will also be health. In between, we will have the pleasure to have at 11, I think, keynote speakers, or keynote speakers. I don't know exactly if you will be both or you will be both. And then the second session, then the lunch, then another keynote speaker, then the third session. So let me introduce you, Dr. Sylvain. Sorry.
Hello everyone. Thanks to the organization for today's session. So engagement and attention is one of the big challenge for healthcare system for treatment. So if you want to train, receive a treatment as well as training, or to convey a message about like good healthcare practices. This word serious game plays such an important role because it will help like every user and every partner to engage more thoughtfully and with much pleasure. So let me invite on stage Fabio Solari. What? Absolutely. I have a wrong
So for you to know, unfortunately, as Fabio Solari will not be there this morning because his back is blocked, so he's in bed, and he told us just yesterday.
Good morning. Today I talk about a pilot study for the assessment of social apathy through a serious game. Our aim is to develop a serious game for the early identification of social apathy. Since apathy can be an early neuropsychiatric symptoms of dementia. And then, what is important, it is to assess its feasibility and acceptance by both patient and doctor. And to do it, we conducted a pilot study. Indeed, dementia is an important issue for society. Indeed, it is considered a global public health priority. And serious games are appropriate as a new paradigm in cognitive evaluation. However, we have to pay attention on the real acceptability and the use of serious game in the clinical context. Indeed, the frequency of age-related disorders are increased due to the longer average lifetime. And indeed, Alzheimer's disease is the most prevalent cause of dementia. But what is important also is the pre-dementia stage, that is known as mild cognitive impairment, MCI. And indeed, an early diagnosis of cognitive impairment is essential to improve disease treatment and control. And for an early diagnosis are important new paradigms of cognitive evaluation. And indeed, a serious game can be a new screening tool that allow early people, patients in general, to do assessment avoiding the hospital context. The proposed serious game was developed in the context of an international project between France and Italy, where doctors are required game, where to implement a new idea to detect the social apathy, and they asked also to save locally the data, and we pay attention for security aspect. We have to pay attention both on the acceptance of doctors and the acceptance of patients. From the point of view of the doctor, it is important to integrate this game in the traditional diagnostic protocols in order to be used in an easy way during the activities. And also, it is important that the serious game provide a solid metric for the detection of disease, and in this specific context of the apathy. From the point of view of the patients, what is important is to develop an easy-to-use interface, since most of elderly people are not able to use in a simple way technologies. And the other important aspect is we must design the serious game in a way that allows the patients to focus on the task, in order to allow the patients to identify with the situation where are playing. We propose a serious game that allows patients to experience different social situations, where they can decide whether to interact with other people and how much. The idea is to identify loss or diminished engagement in social interaction as a precursor of dementia. And the social interaction can be spontaneous social initiative with people that people do not belong to the family, or how is the relationship with the family member, or verbal interaction. We developed a tablet device, since this allows the use of the serious game out of the hospital and in different contexts, and this is important to reach a large number of people, since it's important to detect the early dementia in a large number of people. This is the scheme of the proposed solution. In the center, there is the user, in this case, the old people, or in general the patients, that interact with the game in the tablet. There is a step where we allow the patients to identify with the different character of the game by choosing the avatar. Then we can also enter patient's code and other information. On the right, we can see how we developed the game. The graphics of the game, we pay attention to this specific graphics, and there is a part of the game where there is the narrative part, where the serious game put the patient in the context. Then there is the dialogue part, where there is the interaction between the patients and the people in the game. And then there are the choice of the patients, on which we compute some metrics. The novelty of our approach is twofold. We designed the serious game for the early detection of mild cognitive impairment by exploiting the social interaction disorder. And then we developed the serious game by using graphics and, in general, the environment in order to allow the patients focus on the task and enjoy the social situation. This is very important, the identification of the patients with the game stories, since this allows them to behave as they do in real life, thus obtaining reliable game outcome. We developed 3 different social interactions. The first one is an outdoor situation where the patient is a bus stop and must start to interact with people who do not belong to the family. And there is another situation where a relative come in order to do some action together, and the third where is emulated a phone call with a relative. We measure the patient's performance based on the degree of apathy detected by the choices that the patient makes. The pilot study was conducted by 10 participants, and the doctor did a standard clinical assessment. Indeed, 7 participants had mild cognitive impairment, 3 had a subjective cognitive decline, and only 1 was apathetic. We used self-report questionnaire to evaluate the experience and a score computed on the interaction performed by the patients in the game. This is the results about acceptability questionnaire, and here we have a good result. Indeed, the patients are interested, there is interest, satisfaction, identification with the game, they have no discomfort, anxiety, and fatigue. So the acceptability of the game is good. Then, in this slide, I show you the variability among the patients and among the different games. And indeed, there is a lot of variability. So we have to pay attention when we design the different social interaction and how the patients identify with these different social interaction. We can notice that one patient indeed is different with respect to the other. The patient 8 indeed is the apathetic patient, and the score is different with respect to the other. But since we have only 10 participants, this is only a starting point. A good starting point when we need to assess better by involving more participants in this aspect. What is important instead is to look between the score of the serious game and the standard clinical apathy motivation index. Our results show us that there is a good correlation between game 1 and 2 with the clinical standard, and this is a good point. But the game situation 3, there is no correlation. We studied this point, and from a qualitative analysis based on the observation of the patients, we can see that this is due to the fact that the patients do not identify with the phone call. So this tells us that it is important to design very well the social interaction and allow the patient to identify with the situation in the game. We proposed an early detection of the social apathy through a serious game, and we carried out a pilot study. The results are good, since the patients provide us positive feedback, and they are able to play with a serious game, and the game score has a good correlation with the clinical method. Of course, we need to plan a study by considering more participants, and we need also expand the different game situation by considering different storytelling and kind of social interaction. And also it is important to consider also different graphical aspects. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you to Fabio Solari for this a bit less interactive. I'd like to have your presentation. And now I will invite on stage Ariana Uviller from the Immersive Realities Lab in Reutz, Switzerland, for presenting HE-Arc 2.0 Sexuality Education for Narrative Serious Game.
Good morning. So I'm going to present a narrative series game that we developed for an ongoing project. Alright. I'm going to present the HE-Arc 2.0, a narrative series game for people with intellectual disability. So HE-Arc is an existing project. It's a series of booklets that was released until 2011. The booklets are currently reworked and digitalized because they've gotten a little outdated. One big point is that they are diversified. They have been and will be entirely in plain language to enable people to access these materials alone. It's targeted towards teenagers and young adults primarily, but also to their disseminators like teachers and parents. And the idea was that in the course of this digitalization that we could supplement the materials with a serious game. I'm going to go into why we choose a narrative serious game later on. First, I would like to give you a quick overview over the story that came out in the process of this development. The premise is quite simple. Alex likes blue, but Alex is uncertain what those feelings mean, if it's friendship or love, and if Lou feels the same way, how can they approach you? There are many questions to be answered, and those points are actually all learning objectives of the booklet. So people are viewing the story through the eyes of Alex, and they are finding out about these learning objectives through the narrative of the game. Now, I spoke of diversity. For that matter, people can choose the gender of Alex and Lou. They can be male, female, or diverse. And to allow for this choice, we had to write the story entirely without gender pronouns, which was quite a challenge, but it wasn't the only challenge. For starters, we had an extremely diverse target audience because intellectual disability is primarily a medical terminus. It doesn't tell us much. So we had to go and look into how we can create a game that is suitable for the target audience. And there was a little research on the topic to guide us. So we built on what little was there, but it also gave us an opportunity to gain new knowledge, hopefully. And lastly, it was extremely interdisciplinary. There were many disciplines involved, and not all of them familiar with serious games. What do you see? Oh, you don't see anything. Great. Sorry about that. I did not realize. Yeah, this giant flowchart on the left that you by no means have to read is actually the narrative, the branching narrative. And this was the format that we found that people in the team actually could reasonably read, because formats like Twine that are easily readable for game designers, but not for sexuality education experts. So including the different stakeholders was key to achieve a game that actually meets the goals. And for that we used the serious game design framework called Try Game Design. It proposes 3 worlds: play, meaning, and reality, and those 3 worlds that form the design space. So each world has experts that are primarily located in those worlds. And from the world of play, we wanted to create a game that is driven by the choices of the player. And the educators in the corner of meaning, they wanted to transfer the knowledge in an appropriate and correct way. And for the corner of reality, we had to write the story in a way that is relatable for the target audience. For example, it is thoroughly realistic that the target audience would visit a coffee shop with a friend, but things like large nightclubs are not accessible to them. So writing a story with a setting in a large nightclub would have meant that people miss our goal, because people see it and they would get discouraged or just not find it relatable. Now for the prototyping, since we had no baseline to go with, we started at 0, and what we knew from a paper is that narrative serious games might be suitable for the target audience because they are inherently slow-paced, there is no time pressure, and it's also a genre where reflection goes over action. Bachelor students of HE-Arc developed a serious game, a narrative serious game, to find out if those assumptions actually hold true when given to the target audience. And in a playtest, we found out that the short answer is yes, that works well. We did also notice that since choices are the primary interaction of the players, we really had to look into choices and how to make them interesting and actually beneficial in the means of transferring knowledge. And what we also knew is that the target audience frequently struggles in making reflected choices, because in their day-to-day life they often find themselves with caretakers or parents making choices for them. So when they actually have to make a choice on their own, they often are uncertain how exactly to do that. To take this into account, we decided to only ever give 2 options per choice to limit this difficulty. And we wanted to make sure that the choices we give them have the potential to really reflect on what you are doing. We thought dilemmas would be a good way to do that, because that takes a lot of reflection, but we found that dilemmas require you to remember a lot of information in order to properly compare your options. And the target audience often has limited attention scope, so they can't hold the same amount of information at once as we can. So dilemmas were really difficult because it's simply too much information at once. However, we did not give enough credits to express the choices in the beginning, so choices like what shirt do you want to wear to the first date, but that is very much a choice that prompted them to reflect, because they really compared the options and the outcomes, so that kind of choice fulfilled also this requirement that we had in our choices. We then formulated these choices into a concept of meaningful choices, and said that the choice is meaningful when it prompts people to reflect and or when it has an effect on the outcome of the process of the story. We took all our learnings that we had from the first two prototypes and poured them into a third and final prototype. The reason for it looking very much Unity default buttons again is that we had problems finding a software that would fulfill all our accessibility needs, so we ended up creating a software ourselves with Unity and Yarn Spinner. And in the playtest that we conducted with people from the target audience, we found that the use worked well. They reported enjoying it, and everyone actually finished the game. However, we had two students that the teachers had told us struggled with making decisions, and they needed someone to sit with them and support them in the choice-making process. They didn't make choices for them, but we assumed that if they had been doing this alone and they would have faced these choices, they would have simply quit the game. So assuming that the target audience will always be able to play this game alone, that is something we had to scratch from our requirements, because it's simply not realistic. The guidelines and the game are not completely finalized at this point. We have all the content, but it doesn't look finished yet, so we have to add final artworks, Illustrator will be drawing those, and we are also currently looking into getting voice actors to speak those different characters, because we're using text-to-speech software at the moment. It's not a huge issue because the target audience is used to this kind of voices, but it would help the quality of the game if actual people spoke characters. In conclusion, we now have a set of preliminary guidelines to design narrative serious games for this target audience. For example, we no longer have a time requirement, how long people should take, because that varies greatly between individuals. But what we found is useful is to say how many lines of text roughly should be in between choices, so that people stay engaged with the game. It's also important to have a decompression in the end, where we wrap up the game, so that if people did end up getting confused or struggle, they go out of the game feeling sure and safe about what has just been happening. We also found the participatory approach hugely beneficial, so people from the target audience and subject matter experts were included every step on the way, and without them it would have certainly not come out the way it did. We would like to continue with the playtests, because we only have around 7 people that we could test with due to the small size of classes, and we would also like to look into the play setting, so I'm alone, or in group, and playing in a classroom or outside of it. And lastly, we would like to create a second prototype with those guidelines to find out if they are really applicable to narrative serious games in general. And with that, I am done. Thank you for your interest, and I was happy to read the title of the next slide, because that's Happy Heart, and that's what Herzful roughly translates. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, for this great presentation. We have time for a couple of questions. Anybody? Okay, I have a few. Sorry. You were speaking about sexuality education, and there was it's based on those leaflets that was beforehand. Did you compare the message which was conveyed by the leaflet compared to what your target audience retained from playing with the application? Is it something that you tried already?
Not in that manner. We did talk to them about what they took from the game and tried to find out what information they retained. And they described concepts like boundaries and the difference between friendship and love. But we did not look into if they learned something, because we would be much more participants and long-term study to do this.
Thanks. Any other question? Okay. Thank you very much. Just before you leave, we have a certificate to give you. So thank you for participating for the presentation. Thanks a lot. So next, I will invite on stage Hua Bei from the University of Skövde, the School of Informatics in Sweden. Sorry for misspelling. She will present HE-Arc, a game about healthy lifestyles for Nepalese teenagers.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hua Bai. I'm now studying in University of Skövde in Sweden, and my role is a graphic designer in a series game called HE-Arc, which is a game about healthy lifestyle for Nepalese teenagers. And today I would like to share the development experience and game with you. So I will begin with delicious foods I tried in Nepal, which is also my favorite food. It's called fried rice, or they also call it chow mein. But unfortunately, as my Nepalese team told me, it is an unhealthy food. But it's really good. So this also happened to many Nepalese kids and their families. Cardiovascular disease increased due to those unhealthy foods in low and mid-income countries. So this game came up. The overall aim of our project is to promote a healthy lifestyle through diet and physical activity to prevent future cardiovascular disease for Nepalese teenagers. And also this project is a collaboration between Sweden and Nepal. Next I will introduce how we develop our game. So initially we map out the detail of this knowledge gap by conducting study in Nepal by Nepalese teams. Based on this report, we made a draft for the design of the game. Then we created a paper prototype to be able to test it in Nepal. And at the same time, we did food study, try to capture Nepalese food culture and habits. We also conduct a study to understand Nepalese teenagers' visual preference and also their graphic recognition. After that, we had a very clear picture of the mechanics and game graphics. Then we start to create the final digital game, while also we conducting testing among colleagues and teenagers in Sweden and Nepal. So our game presents 4 main challenges in 7 mini games. There are identify and categorizing food items based on nutrition, preparing healthy meals, and planning a healthy weekend calendar. So next I will show you some clips from our game. So this level is called Food Sorter. You can drag and drop food on the correct shelf, but you need to be aware that some food have no nutrition value, should be dropped into trash bins. So here you might wonder why we have beers or spirits. Is because it's very easy for Nepalese kids to get beer or spirits because of home brewed alcohol. So that's why we have this in this game. This level is called Sugar Rush. You can drag and the slide to guess the proportion of the sugar in each of the food items. And you will learn which items contain more sugar than others. And you might see there, if you get a wrong guess on the proportion of sugar, it will have a green arrow to show you where is the right proportion. Okay, this level is called Master Shelf. So, you will prepare 5 healthy meals for a day. You might wonder why it's 5 meals. It's because it's Nepalese daily meal routines. They will have 5 meals a day. And this level is the most difficult level, even for adults. And this issue also happens in the game test. So we added this table of contents, you can see in below with the blue tables, to show the proportion of nutrition. And it's not just for getting a higher score, but also to get feedback in real time. If you still have some problem to get a higher score, like me, only got 2 stars, you will see that you can check the journal on the top of the right corner, and it will tell you what a healthy plate should contain in this journal. And this pages of benefit for all levels in order to get a deeper understanding of nutrition knowledge. This level is about to plan your physical activity for every day. And here you might wondering why we have reading, gaming, watching TV, playing chess, and napping on our list. It's because Nepalese students consider them as physical activities. Right? That's why we're including this to let them know this is not physical activities. So in conclusion, we think that it's very important to mapping the gap knowledge about target group habits to ensure that the correct approach is applied. And from graphic design, because I'm graphic design for this game, I think the localization theory game image should take into account players' pre-existing visual experience. Here's the example. This picture is we took when we do the food study in Nepal. You will see that this is roti, which is Indian bread. It's a flat bread. And roti, as a very local food, was the most difficult object for students to identify during our field study in Nepal. So although roti is one of the most common foods in Nepalese daily life, it might not be familiar in their daily media, such as books or games. Of course, and also this part, the effective visual communication is also my research interest. And thank you for listening, and welcome to see our game at demo booth. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Is anybody has a question for her?
Thank you for your presentation. Your work is really, really nice. I was wondering just if you have involved any kind of nutritionist that could help in this part, because I noticed that some of the games can be quite tricky. Like if you have to define one specific food has just fat, it's very unlikely that you find like food that is 100% composition fat. And how do we define what is healthy? The person decide like I'm very sedentary now, I'm deciding to run 3 times a day, how it can be like stimulating this more gambling behavior, more addictive behavior, rather than actually healthier behavior for each situation. If the people were involved in creating a better diet with support, or just by themselves, like if they have this kind of support before designing the game or during the usage. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, it's a very good point. And we also consider about this part during our game development. And we have our Nepalese team, their local team in Nepal. So they will give us the nutrition knowledge support for our game. But I'm sorry, I can't answer more about because I'm graphic designer. But thank you for your point.
Thank you.
I can just shout out. So, does the English language come as a barrier? Because it looks like a lot of the apps seem to be for a Western audience, and your target audience seems to be very low income, poor Nepali kids. Do you find that to be a challenge?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and we also consider this part. So the first level of our game is let them recognize all the food to match food with English words. So I hope that level will help them to understand. And also this game is very heavily based on graphic, so they don't need to read a lot of stuff. I hope this will help them to play it and also learn the nutrition knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you for this presentation. It was very interesting, very beautiful also, very engaging. So let me give you this certificate for the presentation. A round of applause. Let's now invite Vincent Lemaire on stage for presenting human emotion and learning life-saving skill in gamification and VR.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vincent Lemaire. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning. And I would like to thank the GSGS committee to be part of this journey. I'm paramedic since 30 years with experience in medical emergencies. And I'm also a first aid specialist instructor and the founder of HE-Arc in Switzerland. I hope you will enjoy the presentation. Sorry. the same emotion with you. As you can see, you can witness a very difficult situation at first hand. A victim is counting on you. Will you dare to come to their head? Every day, at any time and any place, you could be faced with an emergency situation for your neighbor right now, for your family, friends, or your colleague. Let me ask you this question. Would you be able to help under intense pressure and emotions? J'ai un petit souci, Julien, parce que les slides ne suivent pas ici. So sorry, as you know, constraints on this island, you will be alone. So that's why you choose for now. So, doesn't matter, I will take this question. Would you be able and dare the key points speaks for themselves. One person in two directly witness a cardiac arrest, but only 4% of people survive. How can we explain such a low result? Because of high levels of stress and emotions that are difficult to manage and prevent the application of emergency procedures. In addition, the lack of training and knowledge. And to finish, the more you practice, the more your stress decreases and the more self-confident you become. The low number of lives saved can also be explained by factors such as cultural or religious. For example, undressing and touching the victim. Cognitive lack of knowledge. Educational lack of awareness in school and adult life. Social fear of death. Self-esteem. Here we note the importance of self-esteem in managing emotions. Self-esteem, first of all, if it's too low and unstable, it will have a negative influence on thoughts, leading to rather negative interpretations. Thoughts. The contents of thoughts directly conditions emotional feelings. The more negative the interpretations, the worse we feel. And last, emotions. These in turn reinforce the experience in a situation and therefore its interpretation. And then low self-esteem. Then makes vicious circle. As you can see, our emotions play a major role in the decision-making process. If or when we control stress, we become able of rational action. For GSGS, our solution, we have 5 years of experience and a number of participants who have followed our first head training model. We have seen a huge increase in awareness and self-confidence during the courses thanks to the immersion in VR and the use of games in the non-game context. This increased audience participation, motivation and commitment as a part of an emotional training, intensive training course. Since it was founded in 2018, GSGS raised awareness and trained 100 companies and around 3,000 people. We hope that this innovative approach will save lives. As you may know, during our first year of trainings, Gordon, on the right side, was trained to be a rescuer only during 15 minutes in VR. The next day, he saved alive Francis on the left. So, probably not only one life saved. So, I have this question for you. Will you be the next rescuer? Each other. Well, so, see you soon in our training. But, before concluding, I would also like to warmly thank to my team. Staff here present, may I ask you to stand up, please. I have part of my team, and the instructor and the others were I'm so glad, and I would like to thank you for your excellent job. It's really important, and together our actions made sense. Thank you for you, thank you for all. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this very impressive presentation. Any questions from the audience?
You said that during training, people increase their self-esteem, for example. How did you measure that?
Oh, excellent question, thank you. We can't measure with a specific university system. It's only with the feedback after each training. We asked people how was it, how was the emotions, how was the performance of skills, and that's the first step. The next step is 1 year or 6 months later when we see the guys, the participants. We have it's empiric. I don't know if it's right in English. We take participants and we place them in a pseudo situation, in a fake reality, and we try to see what they keep in mind from the last training. And we ask them how was the second training with this people said, wow, I remember what I tried over 1 year. And I could do the same. And about 60 to 7% people trained keep in mind the first training and then are able to do the same procedure.
Okay, thanks.
But it's not the same way to university with random. But I hope we will do it one day.
Thanks. Any other question?
I would be very interested in knowing where does your training take place? Where does your training take place?
For public, that's what you're question. Okay. This kind of training is for all people. Then with VRSQL we train for essential in industry companies. That's why we began with this with my company. But if any people on public would like to perform with our model, welcome.
Thank you very much. Let's have
Okay. I have some questions for you. Yes. So I was wondering, Vincent, from your experience, you said that it's been quite a while you are doing this activity. How many live have you seen like saved, and how many people you have? If you have to give a number, I suppose you don't know precisely, but I guess quite a lot.
Good and difficult questions to answer. For my company official, it's Francis and is the first victim with first rescue of Gordon. But it's difficult because if there are others life saved, it's used often a taboo. People doesn't speak about lives saved after. Then we never know, for example, whose life, how many lives was saved with the rescuers trained by the rescuer.
But I was asking, like, not especially with this device, but more like in your life.
With all my experience?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. In 30 years with periodic emergencies, it's about 10 to 12 hundred lives taken by myself.
I think we can close this.
How many are saved?
Last very quick question. So you have you can train people here, so you can thank you so much for that. And you really need to be strong, like, and what do you think? Does it require something specific? Because if I'm going to train, I don't want to myself got a heart attack just by training.
No specific required asking. The boys, the children can learn with this training over 10 years to 90 years. There's no age or requires specific to learn how to save life. Every people can do it, and this approach, this model, is very with the new technologies adapt for people. Then it's really open for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me give you this certificate. Thank you a lot for this presentation. Thank you all for this session. So, want to give final word, Stefan?
So, thanks to you too. So, please, here is your home certificate as a German. Thank you so much, Sylvain. And now we're going to do a small break. And please start training yourself during the break for saving lives. We'll see each other in 15 to 20 minutes with a long speech from France talking about public health and also unification and how to manage serious games. Thank you so much, and please have a coffee and eat some cakes and train.
Yes. Réduire un peu.
lot from him.
Ouais.
Non, en plus il a beaucoup d'humour et tout ça. C'est mercredi. Viens, viens. Je vais les faire, je vais les faire. I will do, I will do. Oh, je suis plus persiégé.
Okay, well, we're gonna continue after this break, and the next presentation is in fact talk with two keynote speakers coming from France, the University of Tours, and they are going to talk about public health and also the use of gamification and in this context. So thank you so much, Emmanuel Jean-Denis, for being there today. So please, just if you want to use this or well.
Thank you very much, Stéphane. So I am Emmanuel Ruch, and I am a public health physician, and I am the director of research unit, education, ethics and health. It's a research unit of the University of Tours, and it's a team which is constituted by 27 full members and 22 PhD students. We have two areas of application: educational and training pathways, health or care or clinical pathway also. And the team's work is based in particular on an examination of the conditions for acting together, taking care, and decision making. The research activity of our team, research team, is based on interdisciplinarity from education to health via philosophy and also specialists in ethics. Our research focuses in particular on therapeutic patient education. So our subject today is about therapeutic patient education. You know that chronic diseases are a key challenge for our healthcare systems in developed countries. And therapeutic education is an integral part of patient care now in France, but maybe also in Switzerland. And its aim of therapeutic education is to make patients more autonomous, more empowered, and it can facilitate adherence to prescribed treatments, and it can facilitate to improve quality of life. In France, therapeutic patient education takes the form of programs. The aims of these programs are to develop patient self-care skills, and another aim is to develop their ability to adapt to daily life. These programs comprise 4 stages. First, carrying out an educational diagnosis. After, it's necessary to define learning priorities. And after, it's necessary to implement educational sessions. And finally, to evaluate acquired skills. So, in this context, we explore the place of serious games inside this program of therapeutic patient education. Thank you for la Haute École Arc Ingénierie to give us the opportunity to present our research on this subject. Thank you to Stéphane Gobron, especially. And thank you to Jean-Denis to present our research about the serious game.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for welcoming us in this morning to the GSGS Congress. I apologize in advance for my English accent and for my lack of fluency. The purpose of this study is to question the impact that serious games can have in the therapeutic education programs of adult patients. Or, in other words, more simply, can we play with our health? The first part of this research consisted in carrying out a bibliographic search through documentary search engines such as PubMed or Cairn, for example. This is why we turn to a participatory science approach around an adventure of conducting a series of 5 webinars in the middle of the COVID period in 2021 on the themes we wanted to explore, and Stéphane Gobron was one of our speakers in the webinars. In the first time, with the element collected first of all allowed us to define a first aim around e-health, e-TPE, and e-patient. Since 2019, France has experienced an acceleration in digital revolution in health, supported by the Ministry and the High Authority of Health, among others. Throughout the COVID period, practices in terms of therapeutic patients education has been found by the first of digitalized things, generating this new approach that is e-TPE. Thanks to one of the webinars, we were able to focus more particularly on an approach of Dr. Ferguson, who dealt in the 80s with the paradigm of the e-patient, namely a user who is not only connected because of a digital environment, but who is also above all empowered, educated, engaged, equipped, and expert. Our research work has also led us to question the principle of digital literacy, which deals with patients' ability to identify and understand medical and health information through digital tools. We are talking here about literacy, health literacy, and digital health literacy. The ability to understand and mobilize medical information in order to better manage one's health on a daily basis. Then, as caregivers that we are, it was essential that we explore the specificities of what a serious game is. It was important for us to understand and define what a serious game is, and we were able, thanks to the speakers during webinars like Stefan or Frederick Kunzmann, whom you have already heard in another congress, to better understand the issues of gameplay and also game design influencing immersion and the dimension of the pleasure of playing, developed by the theory of the fun, the flow. We have also approached the principle of gamification, which will make it possible to do an educational activity fun without necessarily resorting to the use of a game. And you've got a citation of Alvarez, a French author who studied the gamification computer, and he says that serious game is a computer application whose objective is to combine both serious aspects with playful springs from the video game. Such an association is therefore intended to move away from simple entertainment. And it does another application about gamification, introducing a game, digital or not, utilitarian or not, into a training is it itself a gamification process. It is the process of associating game or game elements in a context that lacks them. A third term that bibliographic research and webinars allowed us to define the question of motivation. That is documented here in a study carried out in France every year by the Union of Video Game Publishers. This point is an element that we have been able to explore extensively in our quantitative and qualitative studies because central to therapeutic patient education, an activity for which we are trained, among other things, in motivational interviewing. Finally, it was important to learn about ethical issues in e-health and the introduction of digital tools in health by addressing, for example, the pharmacon model developed by Platon, namely that the technological and therefore techno-pedagogical solution would be both the remedy and the poison and to our health education problems. The authors and speakers also invited us to consider the principle of ethics by design developed by Fisher, invited us to ask an ethical reflection from the design phase of a tool. The research question asked the impact that a digital edutainment approach could have on psychosocial skills and on the level of health literacy of patients followed in TPE in compliance with an ethical care approach. The search was conducted according to descriptive studies. The first quantitative objective is to identify the obstacles and levers of edutainment practices in TPE in patients followed in programs in our region Centre Val de Loire. The results of this study show that educational games are little or not used are more than 80%, and among the range of playful media, the use of video games was cited by only 4 people out of 56 respondents. However, results caught our attention as to the interest in serious games in terms of their character to allow interaction with other players, other patients, to allow an escape and a decontextualization from the daily life of the disease, as well as an interest around the acquisition of new knowledge and the facilitation to better understand health information. Oh, I did that. The objective of the descriptive qualitative study was to explore during semi-structured interviews the practices as well as the assessment and feedback of the users of a serious game called Drago. This game is intended for allergic patients, half of whom are adults, who must undergo desensitization treatment for three years with a risk of non-compliance with treatment continuity. Here are some verbatims that emerged from our interviews, like new practices. The doctor says, I stick the QR code on the prescriptions to download the applications for the patients. New way, I admit that I would not have thought too much to offer it to adults of my patients because of my age. But the doctor say, which is a bit silly because I play. About health literacy, the doctor say, from the doctor's point of view, what is most interesting is the quiz, because in Drago there is a quiz for the patients. It is still a real contribution of knowledge on desensitization and allergy. Another verbatim, about adherence of treatment, a patient says, I wouldn't have the game, I wouldn't be regular at all. About gameplay and design, a patient says, it just changed visuals and just that it allowed to review the machine a little. Strong expectation in the fact of being able to review the questions and see our answer and actually reread what was true or false to debrief and potentially talk to the family at work or with the doctor. Let us now turn to the discussion and of our results and the resulting operational perspective. In view of our problem, the elements that will influence the motivation and commitment of the patient player will essentially be a part of the interest of it. Indeed, through the interest of seeking collaboration between patients through the entertainment activity allowed by use of the serious game, it is also the entire personal environment of the patient that is mobilized. This echoes the work of the educational sciences that in 2016 defined the paradigm of the personal learning environment. The use of serious game has also been acclaimed for their interest to influencing the digital health literacy of patients without neglecting the fact of seeking the hybridization of information media, thus allowing to respond to the different profiles of patients followed in TPE and therefore some without victims of the digital divide. Another conclusion of our research is that the e-patients cannot evolve in the field of e-health, with which the serious games are an integral part, without being accompanied by a new generation of e-caregivers who take on the characteristics developed by Ferguson and highlighted in our two studies, namely. And we have the elements of the paradigm that we make after the research, that the e-caregivers can have to be empowered. The e-caregivers identify their capabilities in the use of digital tools on a daily basis, even outside the health field, without considering themselves outdated. They have to be engaged guides and the guides e-patients in the issue of these digital media by demonstrating the interest that can be brought to them. They have to be equipped, demonstrate a professional but also personal intellectual curiosity relating to digital culture in the current societal context. They have to be enabled, performs agile training, face-to-face, remote, hybrid, and or professional monitoring in the field of e-health. They are educated, develops knowledge, and knowledge allowing him to develop digital health skills that meet the expectation of the e-patients he monitor. Finally, the ethical approach specific to the introduction of digital media in health also remobilizes, as some patients confided to us during interviews, the interest of involving them from the design phase of these techno-pedagogical tools that are serious games. We can then draw inspiration from the Montreal model, which introduces the notion of patient partner and resource that can have an influence on a research and develop new media, and especially as co-designer. In conclusion, we will probably have to question the advance of the artificial intelligence and its impact on the patient experience, as well as the deployment of the metaverse in training, where the serious game will, without a doubt, find its place. And this, some words for conclusion. Palmer Luckey, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and others, there are many, the authors of digital worlds have gamified our lives. Everything is game now. We thank you for your attention and the pleasure of exchanging with you. I thank the Professor Rush.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. And we have time for interactions, questions. So please go. Yeah. One second. Where is the second one? Thank you, Julien. Thanks. And you can help me to...
Can you say something more about the game itself?
The game Drago, and there is in the game a lot of retro gaming, like Space Invaders, or you have to kill Acarian, maybe I'm not sure in English. You have it's got the mechanics of the game. You have to have points. You can progress in levels. So it's like a game, and you also have a part of a quiz of allergic, and maybe some things to manage more better our health when we are allergic patients.
Thank you. And maybe what is interesting with this game is that the patient use this game with the family of the patient, with children, with a husband, so I think it's interesting to consider not only the patient but the use of the game inside the family.
We don't develop the game. It was first 5 doctors specialized in allergic problems who developed it with game designers and game engineers, and they have the financial way by the industry, pharmaceutical industry.
And the conceptor of the game maybe gain a prize. Yes. Yes, Julien Côté, the doctor, has won prize in a congress of allergic congress. There is a study, a paper in 2022, who explains the game and the impact on the patients. But our studies look at the soft skills impact, empowerment, motivation.
And for us, it was difficult to find a serious game with process of gamification, real serious game for adults, because we have a lot of serious game for children, teenagers, but it's less. It's not very often for adults.
Yes, it's true. There is a question here.
Thank you for the really interesting presentation. You talk about the e-caregivers.
Yes.
Maybe you can get back to the slide.
Yes.
Who are they? Like family members, random people on the internet, and how to make sure
it's
that...
a new paradigm that we make at the end of the research. It's not we are going to have a paper in a review, but it's a paradigm that we make ourselves until it's research. But now there is a law in France. In 2024, it was in the curriculum studies of nurse, doctor, to have lessons about e-health. 28 hours will be
dedicated
in the cases of doctor, physiotherapist, nurse, because it's not in the culture actually in the world of the caregivers.
Great, thank you. Maybe have a second one.
Yeah. We have
just
and if we want that patient use serious game, it's necessary that the health professional integrate some skills to use this serious game and to interact with the patient about this serious game.
And you say that the game seems to be more efficient when a patient plays with his child or someone from the family. So maybe should we stop to develop serious games that are standalone serious games that you must play alone? And maybe specifically in that health field, should it help, or should we stop creating games that you play by yourself? Maybe a tricky question, a bit provocative. Vous avez visiblement montré que ce serious game était plus efficace, plus efficient lorsque le patient jouait avec quelqu'un de sa famille. Il y avait plus de feedback, d'interaction. Donc ma question c'est comment on fait évoluer le jeu pour qu'il soit uniquement collaboratif, ce serious game, et puis est-ce qu'on continue à développer des serious games qui se jouent tout seuls dans le domaine de la santé et de la prévention?
Especially in therapeutic patient education, the family take a very central place. So, our point of view, it's necessary to develop serious game with the fact of the presence of the family. Maybe you can play alone, but the treatments for desensitization allergic, it's for 3 years. And when you are alone, you are going to stop it. But with the family, the motivation will be more strong, and serious game, collaborative serious game with the family and with other patients, because there are a community of patients allergic patients, and maybe the serious game can be played with the community of patients, and they can challenge themselves with the scoring and other things.
Okay, just before the question, I have just one comment on that. You know that collaboration, sociabilization, etc. in games is one of the what we call mid-term and long-term motivations to continue gaming. So when you start gaming, even if it's serious or not, there is always, you are always very motivated at the beginning, and then motivation draw down. So socialization, working on teams, working on groups, collaboration, exchanging, etc. is one factor of enhancing this motivation, especially for the mid-term and the long-term. So I think the question of stopping developing something for standalone is a little bit too, pushing the things to the extreme, but why not thinking always to introduce this socialization, collaboration aspect, which is very important. Yes. There's other questions, I think.
Thank you very much for your very insightful aspects of your research. It's very interesting. So my question would be from a data protection, data perspective in health. I mean, there is a convergence between data somewhere in the internet, somewhere on-site, somewhere in the family, somewhere in X-ray. Can you see a hurdle there or any risks?
For Drago, we don't make this serious game, so I don't know. I just know that they are the game was have an habilitation by in France like NIL or RGPD in Europe, and they have got the habilitation for the patient to play this game. In the 28 hours that will be necessary to have in our courses of nurse, doctor, physiotherapist, there is lots of lessons about cyber security, data protection. But when we are nurse or doctor, it's very difficult for us because we are not informatician or engineer. And in our hospital, university, we have the specialists of that, of data protection, of cyber security. And when we develop this, this way of education tools in health, we have in our dream team, we have this specialists because we are not the specialists. So we need the jurists in law and the engineers in informatician to help us.
Thank you very much.
It's a great subject. We didn't explore this part, but the minimum is to respect European RGPD, but we need to comfort patient and professional, health professional about this aspect.
I'm sorry, you have a question? No? Okay, yeah, quickly make a sign. Okay, more questions? Other questions?
I have one additional question.
Okay, and I have two, but go.
You mentioned AI, artificial intelligence, at the end. I work in artificial intelligence. You can just say a little bit more what you see.
We don't explore this element of AI. We think that it's in the Congress, in the studios, in the papers, it increases the development of AI. But what is the impact in health? Maybe in radiology to help the doctor to find the disease. But in education of patients, actually, I don't have any elements about the impact of AI. But we are interesting. We are very interesting because patient therapeutic. We compose with the knowledge of the patients, the experienced patients, and the EA compose with the user experience. Maybe we can mix the two paradigms.
Yeah, so I think we can discuss together.
Thank you, Stefan, because you give me a nice transition for my question. My question was, first, are you aware about one big project in the University of Lausanne called Intelligent Patient? And their work is on modeling based on huge amount of data, patients, let's say patients' reactions to treatment, to dialogue, to whatever, and they use this patient in order to insert him in any simulation game or in any serious simulation, not only gamified, in order to have, let's say, natural behavior and natural reactions to treatment, to therapies, etc. I don't know if you know about this project. I think it's since 10 years they are working on it, and they are using artificial intelligence and machine learning, deep learning, in order to guess and to predict this reaction and behavior of the patient.
In France, we have a project, a big project about health data hub, and you put patient records in the same hub. So I think it's an opportunity maybe to better describe clinical pathway of patient, and maybe to identify the main difficulties during the clinical pathway, or to identify some central point of to explore. And maybe it's also an opportunity to precise, to describe better at what moment a serious game will be. It will be interesting to develop the use of a serious game to resolve one difficulty during the clinical pathway. So maybe maybe it's a perspective to hear about this health data hub.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for a last question because we need 5 minutes breaks before the next session.
Thank you so much for your talk. During your talk, you were actually talking a lot of all the things that you are doing at the university in France. But what about the international? Do you have currently some project or some expectation in the future?
At the international level, you mean?
Not at the moment, but maybe with the contact in this kind of project of Congress, maybe we can introduce our laboratory team with others. There are many serious games in France who grow up, but not with the research, without university, and the impact, the interest is not very strong. So maybe we have to collaborate more efficiency, with more efficiency. So it's a pleasure if we can have project at the international.
And this is one of the objectives of this Congress. Okay, so thank you very much for your participation. I'm glad to give you this certification of oral presenter and keynote speaker. Thank you very much. You're welcome always. And again, let's take 5 minutes break, and then let's come back for the next session. Okay, so we start at 50. Isn't it? Okay, 50. Thank you.
Concerning the proceeding, there's several people asking me how to reach it. It's not yet on the website because we always wait the end of the Congress, but there's some QR code outside that you can just scan and you will get a version, almost final version of the proceeding, especially for the one who would like to find out the GSGS’23 Enigma. It takes time, so please help us. Maybe Juliette, you have the QR code you can scan put there.
finished. Oh, good. You're done with the cocktail call?
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Oh, better because the phone call went well. That's why I love in Switzerland. For example, this was the assurance for the UCL for Ensemble. Yeah. The autonomous business was nothing but interesting, and nothing changed, I just moved the camera.
Yeah.
Okay, don't worry, don't even send it back or not send you an email.
Because that will be based in Rio, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, makes no sense. We were doing that, we were renting mailboxes.
Why it was not, you didn't have to pay for the incubator.
Okay. Was it nouveau?
Monte is the city that you see from a peripheral down, that's one. But it's funny. C'est déjà là, l'autre côté de la rivière.
You quand on go, basically you change it.
Yeah. Nobody really knows that's the prices on that side. Twice as much tax.
Well, no, usually I was going to say that it will be tough. Just wake me when you're here.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second session of the GSGS. My name is Baptiste Lucien, and I will be the chair of this session. As a reminder, each presenter will have a maximum of 12 minutes of presentation, and then the audience will have 3 minutes to ask their questions. So, first let me introduce the first speaker of this session, HE-Arc from the Northern Arizona University, and his presentation about COVID vaccine game proteins.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is HE-Arc. I'm an associate professor in computer science. My research area is mostly looking at games for behavior change and designing games working within the healthcare context. I've been doing game design work in obesity, nutrition, and more recently in the area of vaccination. So today's presentation, I'm going to not use a standard format of PowerPoint talk, but just talk about the game itself. I'm trying to play it with you along the way. So the project was funded by Merck Foundation, a big pharmaceutical company. The idea here was that we're seeing early interest in vaccinations during the COVID-19 pandemic, but the interest tapers off as the pandemic progresses. And especially you see very little interest in the younger population, youth, teenage, and young adults, with respect to boosters, second doses, and so on. So the goal of the project was to look at games as a way to do some behavior change here, which is to improve vaccination uptake in this specific population. The idea that we proposed for the project was to look at a specific setting of vaccine clinics. Typically what happens in vaccine clinics are parents and their children, young adults, teenagers, usually are waiting for an appointment, and at that period of time, there is an opportunity to engage them with something more educational and interactive like a game. So the idea was to design something for that short duration of time, typically about 5 to 10 minutes while they're waiting for their appointments, with an intention that it would lead to some change in their behavior. The other aspect of this project that was critical was it had to be designed with what we call a dyad, which is the child and the parent in mind, rather than an individual. This is especially critical in this settings where the vaccination decisions are typically made by the parent, but there is an element of buy-in from the child as well. So it's a very unique situation where you have to design a game with a multiple human element in the mix. And so these are kind of some of the challenges. So the game had to be short, but the game also had to meet these challenges of multiple people working on it. So the theoretical basis was, well-known theory of social cognition that Bandura had talked about back when. And so the idea here was to look at attitudes, which usually came from the younger audience because their attitude to getting a vaccine is usually poor. Knowledge, which is another construct in the theory, which is usually a more parental construct where the parents are not as knowledgeable to make a decision. And then agency, which is a dual concept, which is trying to make sure that you provide the control of the decision making to the game, to the dyad. So using these three kind of theoretical foundations from the theory of social cognition, we try to design this game. And I'm just going to play a little bit about the game so that you can see how it's all coming out. At the moment, we are in the clinics, we're collecting data, we're looking at doing a, not very long term, but about a 6-month study to see how the game influences decision making in the dyads and study that and present it in the future. But right now, this is the final version of the game that I'm presenting at the conference. So I won't play the tutorial here, but I'll just kind of play the game to kind of show you what's happening. It's a school environment. We have a little bit of diversity here in the NPCs. You're playing a God game kind of a mode, so you are not in the game, but you're making decisions on behalf of NPCs that are in the game. You have the wellness clinic on the right. This is a unique element here. It's called the isolation zone. That is when you need to be isolated and prevent the spread of the pandemic. So the idea here is that you would need to save as many children, in this case, as a God mode player, you're trying to get the highest score by saving as many children, which means that you are preventing them from getting the COVID infection. And you do that by making decisions on their behalf. So you'll see, by clicking these NPCs, you will either have a choice to convince them. So they're in 3 states. Some don't need convincing, which is kind of what the reflection of the real world is. Some need convincing, and some are absolutely, I'm not going to get the vaccine, right? So this is what's happening in reality, so we're trying to kind of do that. So if you click someone else, and I'm just going to try and see if you find. So this one does not need convincing, so you can move them into the vaccine clinic and start vaccinating. You'll also get to see some real-world perspectives where after they finish their first dose, there will be a timer, and they'll be ready for their second dose. So you won't see your score go up until you have actually given them the second dose. So you'll see that slide bar takes time. So it is still a game. You have to get the high score, which means you have to really manage your resources well and try and get that going. Now, when you try to convince someone, this is where the dyad actions come in. So this is the knowledge part of it, where the parent has to be brought in, and you discuss these options along with the parent while you're sitting in the clinic. So you have to make a choice based on the questions, which one would be appropriate. So, for example, I can say that, and it'll kind of give you whether you're right or not, and then you kind of move forward. And so once you get that correct, so if you click that person, they are now ready to be moved into the clinic because they don't need convincing anymore. From time to time, you'll see this ambulance in the vial, trying to see if there's anyone in the isolation zone. So sometimes you'll have to see, again, it's very rare. You find some folks ready for the second dose, so you can drag them into the clinic. And this is designed for tablets, so the mouse interface is not the best. So they are provided tablets in the clinics, and they're just using drag and drop using the swipes. Okay, so here's a person who would not want to be convinced, so you have to put them in the isolation zone. You'll see the ambulance take them away. So this is kind of giving a little bit more about, hey, you know, if you're going to be one of those naysayers, you may have to be admitted or your situation could get really worse. And you saw that the score got 1 because I gave that person the second dose. And the idea is before the time runs out, it's a really short duration here. You're trying to work together with your parent and make these decisions for as many children as possible to get them all the way to the second dose. And the goal here is that with this joint process of changing the attitude for the children and improving the knowledge for the parent, you're able to kind of tackle the dyad as a player rather than an individual. That's the key element here. So to try and design this for a dyad, and we're hoping, we don't know the answer to that, we're hoping that in the next few months, 6 months, we'll have some results to share about how well this actually worked with the target population. Okay, so questions? I can continue to play more and to see other things, but that's basically the idea of the game.
Thank you, Professor Andresch, for your presentation. Someone want to ask a question? Okay, so I have one. Do you think, I am wondering, do you think that it could be possible to extend the concept of this game to another disease vaccine such as rubella or measles or HPV vaccine?
Yeah, absolutely. This is designed with COVID in mind, the knowledge elements like the questioning. But, the situation also is kind of like a school where, you have a high chance of infection. But the idea of having a gameplay that helps change attitude and then a series of questions that helps improve knowledge, that combination can work in any dyad-based environment. So for example, for HPV, again, the parents are responsible for the HPV vaccine for the children. So you could use the idea in this this particular format to apply for some other vaccination goal. The other thing is you could also change it based on the population's community. So if you were in a rural area, it could be a different environment. This is designed for clinics that are in a metropolitan urban setting, so that's why you see the environment reflect that. You could also change the language to be, of the community's preference. So there are simple modifications that can be made without a lot of effort that could translate this into either different vaccination problems or different communities. But I don't want to say anything more until we have results, because if this doesn't really work, then we don't want to go pursue this route. So the verdict is still not out there about when this is going to be pursued.
I don't understand how this playing scenario is. So is this a tablet shared by the parent and child?
Yeah, so the tablets are provided to the clinics, and while they're waiting for their appointment, a tablet is given to both the child and the parent to jointly play the game on the tablet together.
So have you actually done playing sessions?
We have done usability studies with dyads just for usability. We are now in the process of collecting data in the clinics with the parents and children. We haven't completed that study yet.
Because my experience, I've done pair programming in my computer studies course. So you need to assure a kind of like balance, and who's doing what? How do you do that?
So the way it works is when you click someone that needs convincing, it freezes the game. So it is not at that time a highly active environment. And during the points when the game is frozen, the child and the parent have to discuss to answer the questions together. What I did was, I played it so many times, I kind of know what the answers are, so I was able to move forward quickly in the interest of time. But during the usability studies we did, we found that actually parents and children discussed every option together to come up with the right, and many times they don't come up with the right answer and they have to try again. Because if they don't get all 3 questions right, the NPC in the game won't be ready for the second dose. So for them to get a higher score, which is what's driving the child, they have to actually think about these answers. That's what's driving the parent, because that's where the knowledge is essential to be improved, is on the parent side. Whereas the score element, the game element, is where the driving force is on the child side. So together we see in our usability studies that parents and child actually nudge each other to make the right decisions while the game is frozen, so that they can get the highest score. Again, this is all usability. We didn't do it in the clinic yet, so a lot more information is going to be made available in the near future.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Saradini from the Social Work Faculty of Sierra, and our presentation of the co-creation of serious games to acquire professional skills.
So I'm not Saradini, sorry for that. So I'm Antoine Demer. I'm a professor at HE-Arc Neuchâtel in computer science, and I work with Sarah on this project. So the idea is that we share the presentation because she couldn't be here today. So she asked me to come and to give you the context, and then you will see her in the presentation because she filmed herself presenting. So this is what the plan is. Let's see if it works. So the project that we have together is there. So we have in Valais, we have a center for disabled kids to go and to apprenticeships. So the idea is that they can get trained in the building industry, and mainly in the building industry they have 2D plan to do 3D stuff. And it's difficult for them, even for me sometimes when I see the plan, it's really difficult to see what the 2D is and how it's translated to the 3D. So the idea of this project is to see if we can do serious gaming using HE-Arc to help them to take this ability and to be more employable at the end of their apprenticeship. So we made the study on 5 trades. So bricklayers, carpenters, plumbers, metalworkers, and flaggers. They all have 2D plant and they all have a 3D aspect. So when you build a wall, you have to know where you have to put the bricks, and it's given to you in 2D plan. So the idea is that all of these trades, they must master the 2D, 3D aspect of the plane. So for the project that I'm talking today, it's an Innosuisse project that has 3 partners. The ORIF is the institution I told you before about this apprenticeship for people with disability. There is a social science, social work, where Sarah is working, and the IT section is myself. So this is a project with 3 partners, and all the partners actually give a lot of expertise and a lot of added value to the project. So the idea, as I said, is to use a game using HE-Arc system to because we believe that it could offer like personalized learning for this population. And XR, it's used because it's easy to do to train stuff in XR, but the thing is that not only a simulation, we actually place the gameplay, we have feedback, progress monitoring, we have levels, challenges, and it's interactive. So the idea is that we use XR because it's easy to do, and we'll see much more after. But then we apply serious game on that. And we use the Living Lab perspective, and this is what Sarah is doing. So talking to the end users, to the professionals, to the educators that are training the young generation. So the idea is that we have every 6 weeks we have like a meeting to see how it goes, and we make the test, we test with end users and so on. So this is kind of an interesting part of the project. And what we believe is that if you take this graph, on the y-axis you have the teaching kind of aspect, and on the x-axis you have the autonomy. And we believe that, and those lines that I drew on the graph as trajectory for different people. So we believe that some people will spend more time in VR and less time in AR, and people will go half and half, and people will spend less time in VR and more time in AR, and with serious games. So just to show you how it looks like, so this is a screenshot of the metal kind of workshop, and they have to create, they have a 2D plan, and they have to create a piece in 3D using all the tools that they're working on. So this is the part of XR. And the thing is that we placed a lot of aids, visual aids, or we have sounds. It's depending of the disability of the kids. We decide which kind of help we can give him or her, and how we can help him in the VR. So VR is nice because it's all controlled. So this is the first aspect. And then we have AR application as well, serious game as well. And in this case is that they have a 2D plan of pipes, and they have to do it, they have to connect them through the app, and then you can see it in 3D and in the wheel, at the wheel scale directly in front of them. So this actually helps them a lot to see the 3D elements and how they connect to the 2D. So I have like a user feedback. I will see if the sound is working. Let's see. Yes, let's check.
C'est différent de ce qu'on voit à l'atelier. C'est plus dans un lieu qu'on connaît. Donc j'entends le jeu vidéo. En soi, genre, ouais, c'est vraiment plus instructif de faire ça comme ça que de faire sur un établi debout avec un crayon et un papier.
Okay, so this was like, because as I said, we made a lot of end user testing, and this was part of a small show that we had on the local TV, and she was asked that what she liked about the game or she didn't like about the game, and this is what she said.
C'est différent de ce.
And then I will let Sarah Dini talk for the 2 slides. Let's see if it works as well.
For the social work, the project is very important. For the social work, the project is very important because it provides a new educational tool to help people with cognitive or social disabilities to be better integrated in our society. It's a new tool for educators in the classroom so that the educators can help apprentices to improve the hard skills, that can be a job-related skill, and soft skills like problem planning and problem-solving strategy. So this tool can improve employability and integration of young people with learning disabilities. What's very interesting too is to integrate educators and young people with learning disabilities in the project for the conception and tests of this tool, because we want to be sure that this tool is useful for both educators and young people with disabilities. This is precisely the Living Lab perspective. That's why we collaborate with educators to create exercises with structured learning. That means to have exercises with action sequences that apprentices need to memorize and master. And the difficulty here is to provide pedagogical supports that fit to an heterogeneity of profile. Because here we consider the learning disabilities in a large way that includes, for example, autism, attention disorder, hyperactivity, dyspraxia, dyslexia, or anxiety disorders. And so this tool has to be adapted to a diversity of difficulties, that means social, psychic, or cognitive. And the challenge here for the social work is to create with the technology different kinds of supports like visual scaffoldings, that means coloring very important elements or having text with adaptive form, vocal assistance, pictograms, sequence actions, and 3D representation. Another adaptation that is possible is to personalize the setting of the virtual environment with different degrees of support. José's pedagogical triangle is a benchmark for designing a learning situation. The triangle includes the educator, the apprentice, and the skill to be acquired. That's the triangle below the illustration. By introducing technology into the process, it becomes a tetrahedron, and it involves rethinking the process of knowledge transmission and acquisition. The tetrahedron, conceptualized by Lombard, gives the possibility to analyze the function and malfunction of learning situations, as well as the technological tools. So this is why we're using it in this project, not only to create the tool, that's the triangle representing teaching here, and to create the appropriate pedagogical supports, that's the learning triangle, but also to create the pedagogical guide for educators. That's the triangle that we have behind, in the back, that's called education. This guide will help educators to coach their apprentices before, during, and after the tool. After using the tool. So indeed, the educator will have to prepare apprentices to use the tool, to coach them during the use, and have them to transfer knowledge, that's very important, to the real world and generalize what the apprentices have to learn, or have learned. The benefits of using technology here to mediate knowledge in the learning situation are known in the scientific literature. Indeed, the literature reports that in addition to the acquisition of personal skills and support for learning, there is an improvement in learners' autonomy, support for cognitive functions such as attention, planning, self-regulation, time management, and memory, a reduction in the need of external aids, and an increase in self-determination. This is what we hope to achieve in this project.
Thank you, Sarah. So the perception and need, so what we are at right now is that we are, the project will be finished in December, and we are still testing. We have a test early July with more participants. And we haven't touched the AI aspect of it at the moment, but the idea would be to have like a learning path that is actually given to one user based on his or her abilities and his liking. And the thing is that we got contacted with like association, like trade association, that they want to use the tool in normal apprenticeship. So, for example, in Valais we have a lot of people coming from Italy to work and they don't speak the language, so maybe we can use this tool in Italian to teach them how to speak in Switzerland. And for conclusion, so this is our quadrant of learning, and we use the Leading Lab process and participation interview to make everything work. And it's really targeted at professional skill acquisition, mostly for people that have disabilities. And it's really emphasized that one of the nice aspects that I like about this project is the fact that we have social work really involved in the project, and that makes the project really focus on the need of the younger generation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. I think there are some questions, so someone want to ask a question? Okay, so I have one. In your presentation, you said that your service games improve the skills and integration.
Yes, so this is the goal of the service games.
And they are wondering how you evaluate the improvement of skills and integration.
So this is the second part of the project will be to have like two groups, one control group that does the normal training and one with this. And we hope you can see like difference of like the speed of learning. And for us, the nice thing is that integration in the company is a big deal, because like usually this population, when they get hired by the company, they do like a really meaningless job. And we hope that if we give them more ability to do stuff that is more meaningful for them, they will be more integrated in the company.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm glad to hear about this project, Antoine, because we had some exchange by email in order to collaborate in the future.
Yes.
We are working with the same client, I think. Nice. But I have a question. It's always very time consuming to develop the models, 3D models, etc. for such games. Did you do something in order to make these games a little bit generic? Thinking about offering tools, how to make it a little bit possible for many scenarios and not only the one who were specified since the beginning.
Yes.
Thanks.
So the idea is that yes, we kept that in mind when we were building the VR application or the AR application. So what you can see here is that we have several panels that you can actually change as you wish. So we keep the same kind of panel for all the trades, and as well we have a sequence of exercises that are like in the database, as you might know. So we have like a structure of exercises with tasks and with like point and like if it's successful or not. So we have all that as well, and the idea is, as you said, is not only to do this project and have everything finished at the end, but to try to get something out and plug it somewhere else. So that was the goal as well.
Thank you very much. You spoke about the co-creation. Could you precise which kind of co-creation?
Yeah.
Especially about the implication of maybe public apprentice.
Yes. Yes. So the idea is that we use this Leading Lab approach. That is what Saradin is doing in the project. So the idea is that every 6 weeks we meet with educators, with people that are involved in the project, and we have end users as well. So next week I'm going back to Orif, and we like 2 young people for each of the trades that will come and test what we did. And the idea, we did already that 6 months ago, So now we actually incorporated their feedback, and now we see if it's better. So the idea is that the cooperation is the fact that we are doing like iterative sequences, and each of them we must be better than the last one. And the thing is that we involve all partners each time that they need. So they can come and test and ask questions. And it was really, I mean, this is, for me, this is kind of the nice part of the project, is that we're always confronted by small issues, and for us it's time consuming because it's computer science, but then on the other side they don't understand this, so they say, but I asked you this little thing and you spent 2 months to do it, so what happened? So this is, I mean, for me this is what we like about this cooperation aspect.
One last question.
So I understand that you made a digital simulation of the workspace. Right?
Yes, so that's what I said more than simulation, is that we simulated the workspace, but then we added the gameplay as well. So this is really, I know, yes.
What is the gameplay other than doing a exercise but in a digital stage?
So the gameplay is more about the challenges and as well as the help that you can ask or you cannot ask. So the thing is that he is having choices to ask help from someone or not. So the idea is this is the full aspect of it. But then if he knows well, you can play alone and doing the simulated environment. But then if he needs help, you can ask, and then the more help he gets, the less point he gets, and you have a leaderboard at the end as well. So we have two kinds of gamification with some gaming aspect, and as well as the gameplay, the fact that he has to do some challenges after challenges.
So you added points to normal exercises, but they decrease in normal.
Yes.
Okay. Do they get graded for these exercises?
They get graded? I mean, if you get a grade out of it?
Yeah. Is there assessment?
Yes, there are assessments. The idea is that for now is that the educator is with them when they do the simulation or the serious game, and then they see what's going wrong and what's going nicely. And the thing is that as well is that what we saw is that people with disability, they were not able to do it in reality, but they were able to do it in VR. So the thing is that we see that there are some changes in the fact that if they place the helmet and they do it in the VR, and sometimes the educator told me that this guy cannot do it in the real life because he's free, he's frozen because of I don't know what, and when he placed the helmet on his head, he's doing this stuff. So at the same time, he's not getting graded, but the thing is that the educators know what he needs to work on after. So it's more like within the training aspect.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
It is a great honor to for me to introduce our next speaker, Yassin Aziznek from the University of Applied Science of Geneva and his Glasgow Commerce Institute.
Thank you. Okay, hello everybody. My name is Yassin Retik. I'm professor at the University of Applied Science in Geneva, and I will present a project called Glasgow's for a Glasgow coma scale simulator. And this project is developed in collaboration with my colleague Stéphane Malanda, here present, and also Dominique Carrea de Oliveira from the École Santé Canton de Vaud. So, first let me explain a little bit what is this Glasgow scale. So the Glasgow Coma Scale is a neurological instrument in order to measure the degree of consciousness for patients, and it's a way to communicate easily between the many intervenients in emergency situations. So when, for example, there is a situation of emergency between nurses, doctors, rescuers, etc., they can rapidly exchange their evaluation of the situation just by giving a number. It's 7, it's 10, and it's very easier than explaining half an hour about the situation, because we are in a situation of emergency and we need to go fast. It's an international scale. This is also very beneficial, so you can have the same evaluation wherever you are all over the world. This scale is based on 3 main, let's say, analysis of the A, movement and situation. Of course, I'm sorry, I'm not doctors, I'm not practitioners, I'm trying to explain what people explained to me at the beginning of the project. The second thing is everything which is verbal exchange, how he answer questions, can he situate himself, etc. So it's what we call verbal response. And we have also motor response. There is some analysis we can do in order to see if he reacts normally or not to some stimulus, and based on these 3 evaluations, we get to a score. And of course, this score, if is it between 13 and 15, the situation is very okay. If is it between 9 and 12, the situation starts becoming a little bit, not normal, but we have to do something. And if is it lower than 8, we are in a critical situation and we have to take many decisions rapidly. Okay, so this is the scale. How this scale is teaching now, of course, this scale, as I said, is used by a lot of people, doctors, nurses, firemen, rescuers, etc. So it is, they are supposed to be trained on making such analysis and such diagnostic and give a score for all this curriculum. But the problem is that in general, the topic is so large and the variation is so huge. They always make some simulation using themselves as figurants, as actors, and they try to simulate 10, 12 situations. And it's very basic, and it is not enough at all to get all the parameters and to take into account all the variation of the problem. So let me give you just one example. You can teach the theory for 1 year, and then you are faced with the patient and he don't react, and it is not because of the situation, it's not because he is, for example, paralyzed, or he is older woman and he cannot react. So the diagnostic will be completely different, and all these nuances and shaders and subtleties are not easy to teach. So the idea is that we have been contacted by teacher from the École Santé in Lausanne, and they said, can you do it better by building a simulation for that? So the first step, so the objective was to first build a simulation in order to put the student, the learner, in a situation and to be able to realize this, diagnostic and to be able to give a score at the end. This is the first step. Then, of course, because I'm working on gamification and game development since now, 20 years, I try to introduce some gamification, and I asked them, can we make it a little bit more attractive, etc., by introducing some gamification? So, of course, as usual, they said, it's okay, but first let's focus on the simulation and then we can see. So we went this step by step project. So we say, okay, we will develop the simulation first, very seriously, very realistically, and then we will tackle 2 gamification steps. In the first one, we will introduce gamification aspects who are, let's say, classical. All bodies, everyone working in gamification know them. I will explain them later. But in the second phase, I suggested to go out from the classical context of the hospital or etc. and to develop something completely new. We are in the city, we are doing missions, and in order to make the quests and the missions in the city, you have to rescue some people in order to get information, to get some keys, to get some hints, and this will help you to go faster, to go more in your missions, etc. So this is the, let's say, the contracts with our, let's say, end users. So we started development, so we developed a kind of modelization of our simulator. So the idea is to allow the practitioner or the teacher to define scenarios, and the scenario described can we have interaction with parents of the patient, how to model the patient and all his reactions to the stimulus, and also how to get access to the files and records of the patient's age, situation, etc., medical information, etc. And then the gamer will take into account. I'm sorry. Bon, j'ai touché quelque chose. Okay. Sorry. Then the gamer will start, and the end results of his game or his simulation is to first have a Glasgow score. He has to suggest a Glasgow score, but there is also another things, because when we discuss with teacher, they said what is important not only to get the score, but to decide what is the implication of this score. And they have what they call something they call it the SCAR, is situation, context, analysis, and reactions. So the idea is to describe for any doctor or practitioner the situation of the patient, the context. Is it, for example, the third diagnostic, the second day, the third day, etc. So this is what they call the context. Then you have to give your analysis. He is at 9, at 6, at 7, at whatever your score, and then you have to suggest. We should, for example, make intubation. We should do that and that and that. And this process has to be mastered by this prototype. So of course we make a model for that, because our idea is to be able to generate as much situation as possible. So instead of developing fixed scenarios, we give the opportunity for the learner, for the teacher, to describe their own scenario, and we model that in JSON format, and then it is absorbed by our simulator, and we can have new simulation each day if the teacher can describe the new scenarios. Okay, so it's we try to make it very generic. So now the situation is that the simulation part is working, let's say, well. I say let's say well because we didn't make real tests until now. Only teachers use it, test it, and we are supposed to test it in the next semester at September. Okay, so the idea is to be in an hospital room. We have the patients, we have one of the parents, etc. Don't take attention to the bad modeling of the patient, etc. This is only the first prototype. Now we have nicer and more realistic prototypes, etc. of the patients and the parents. Then when we have also is that we can interact with the patients, we can interact with the parents. At the end, you have to decide from the 3 levels of scoring, compute the global score, and then you have also to decide in the SCAR tool in order to take decision what you have to do in this situation. At the end, any learner has a global evaluation at the end. Did you do it good or bad, etc., etc. Okay. So as I said, this is okay. Again, I have to mention the difficulty to model a patient and to be as realistic as possible. Of course, it's a small project. I don't have the budget to hire 10 graphics in order to have a very realistic patient. So what we do is that we use reusable assets from Unity, etc. But what we did is to develop 3 modules on that, focusing on the 3 analyses we have to do. So we developed something focusing only on eyes, and we develop a module allowing us to define how the eyes will react and how we can trigger that, etc. So this is in order to focus on eye reactions and situation. The second thing is all the verbal exchange with the patients, and we do it using artificial intelligence. We using bots, and we're using also a tool in order to detect keywords in the questions, and then we automatically generate answers. And of course, the answers depends on the score we are targeting. So if, for example, the teacher says, in this situation, the targeted score is 8. So we are supposed to have incoherent answers. So we have to produce incoherent answers. Not coherent, it's the opposite, etc. Okay, I will finish in 2 minutes. And the third thing is that we have developed a lot of animations in order to simulate also the reaction of patients to physical stimulus. And also in this case, we develop good ones and wrong ones, because sometimes it happens, in a lot of time it happens. Okay, certain things, we started introducing some gamifications, like for example, time constraints, scoring, rewards, final evaluation, and also we noticed that students and teachers like these aspects of using IT objects. It's by itself, it's funny for them, okay? And the second step, but we didn't start that. We are also just brainstorming on it, and we start making the models, etc., and the story, but we didn't start the implementation. Is, as I said, to transform all that as a mission in the city, and you will make some encounters, and every time you encounter someone, he is in a critical situation, you have to save them in order to get some information, some hints, some code, etc., and it will allows you to continue your mission. It is intended to be more fun. So this is the situation, and now, as I said, the simulation mode worked very well. Gamification level 1 is also in progress, but more or less achieved. And as I said, we will test that next semester with the real students from École de Santé Lausanne, and the future will be the gamification level. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. Unfortunately, we have no time for questions.
No problem, it's better for me to escape questions. No, but we can discuss in the break. So I'm here for the whole day and tomorrow also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Finally, it's a great honor to me to introduce our next speaker, Stéphane Gobron from the University of Applied Science of Neuchâtel, and his presentation entitled Gamifying the Hand of Life Project with 3D Rendering.
Hello everyone. Long time no see. It's working? Yes, it is. This presentation will be basically into two parts. The project itself, because it's been 5 years we are working on this project, so it's fairly old. You've got the graphics and the variety, gamification, this is 5 years. So, and the other part is gamification by adding graphics. This is also a bit weird. I add some graphics and then it's gamified. Okay, we'll see that. So the project itself, end of life, it's been quite a while, you see, 2016, is clearly about end of life. Some people are dying. This is obviously the only thing we know for sure in life, the end. But the issue is not just the patient. Here we are talking about the staff. For you to know, I don't know if you know, but people working at hospital, in homes, or in specialized departments, there's around 10 to 15% of the personnel, the staff, that after 1 year will have a burnout, or they will just go into depression, and they will quit their work. Not just like changing the department. They will quit. There's no way they will go into a hospital anymore. And it's a huge waste. Not just a waste of staff. I mean, I'm missing a lot of staff. But it's also in terms of personal. What's going on? The fact is, this occurred because most of the time they are very young. They arrive, they've been taught a lot of techniques, and in terms of soft skills, empathy, listening, how to react to someone who is dying. I mean, it can be sad to see elder people die, but sometimes it's a kid, and you know that this kid will live maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, max. How to react, how to protect yourself. So with Pierre-Alain Chariot, we started this work. The consortium was a bit larger, but the main player here was there, and especially Jean-François, which they worked a lot, because we had to find something about storytelling. Because this is about experimenting. When you are at school, you don't experiment. Well, yes, you do, but not with someone dying. It's just theory. And you are trained for technical skills only. How to react at someone who's just keeping on crying, or maybe having some violent action on you. The violence can be physical, it can be also mental. And the big part was with Jean-François Michelet, who is a scenarist. So most of the hours we worked on this problem was with him, making a story, a consistent story. And of course, we had the chance to have 5 other institutes. We went to see them and we asked, please tell us your experience. What happened with your like 20, 30, 40 years of experience in healthcare for people dying? And we had a small set of really deep and emotionally speaking, strong stories. And with Jean-François, we made a story about that. A multiple choice story. So each time you have a context, and you have a choice how to react to this context, and then the story goes on. And after a while, you finish one scene. And after 4 or 5 scenes, you finish one chapter. But each time you want to go from one scene to the other one, you will be judged by not your capacity in behave like you are strong, maybe in empathy, but the listening part is weak. And the goal is not to be the perfect listener and very weak in empathy, for instance. You have to be strong a little bit in everything. Most of the choice that you will get when you do this experience are not bad choices. It's just choices. And from that, it's not just experience that you learn of difficult situations. It's also the fact that you have these choices telling you, oh, I'm discovering that I could answer that. Yeah, I can also answer that. And by reading this, you will learn not just the situation that you might encounter in your professional life, but also solutions that you might use. But not only that. This system, by the end of the 200 situations that you were on, it will give you a mirror of yourself. Statistically, this mirror is quite strong. Maybe the computer will tell you, well, your listening skills are very good. Definitely, you are maybe too close to the patient, and maybe then you will get hurt. You must put at least a little bit of distance, a little bit. The opposite, of course, can help with results. So each scene at the end, on this one, respect, compassion, and empathy, for instance. There was, at the beginning, 5 parameters, 5 soft skills we wanted to implement. Only 3 currently are implemented. But then, the game was just text, and the graphics, as you can see previously, was very ugly. Just this kind of thing. We are not experts in graphics design. We do some computer programs, but not the design. So we thought to say, okay, let's try to add some gamification to make it more sexy, but with the same story, with the same depth, and maybe, how to add the graphics? It's not just to make it beautiful, because the story is not funny at all. And it's gamified, but gamified doesn't mean that it's fun. I can tell you that each time we tried this story with students and fellow staff members from the health departments, quite a lot of people were actually crying just by reading and the choice they have. So we use 2 engines, Unreal Engine and also Unity Engine. The first one for the scenes and to make it quite more detailed, and because we had some facial expression to add, and because to transfer and to be emerged more easily by looking at the face of your patient, then it's even more gamified. Of course, it's not a game, but you can have a transfer of emotion. And in terms of activity and user interaction, we use Unity because it was much more easy than this one. Here are the scenes that we rendered, and here are the facial expression of Agathe. She's 93, and her health is not that good. And we know that by the end of the book, she will not be there anymore. And this is the place where we invented. She's staying just now. You can see her here, the wedding. And let's take a look. Right. This. So the take-home message, gamification and serious game for header is a big, I would say in terms of kind of a big challenge, but it's also a big market. So if there's some entrepreneur here, you can be sure that there's some stuff to be done, and that's, I think, from my point of view, great stuff to when you come back home and you say, okay, I worked for just making a nice watch. I'm not saying that because Ashraff is making great watches. Soft skills are very important. Unfortunately, they are not very well taught because it's very difficult to teach this matter. Nothing's better than the experience itself, in this case, and you are the mirror effect of all you are.
Thank you very much for listening. Is there any question? Thank you for the presentation.
Okay, so thanks you also to you for being here. Here is your attestation unfortunately. Let's eat. You are all invited. Oh, the picture. Yeah, please. Can you all come here? Please come. We like, because every year we are forgetting to take a picture. So please come here.
C'est la photo.
Si tu vois Martin sortir d'un couloir, c'est aux toilettes.
Is that better? Thank you.
Julien, don't move, please.
Thank you very much.
No, don't move. Viens là. mais il fallait juste là où il était. Absolument pas.
Plus loin, alors, si tu veux.
Non, non, on revient. On stop. On stop. It's a for the scale.
Dernière.
Thank you so much.